According to the Global Startup Ecosystem Rankings in 2014-2015, published in Annual Report 2015 of Vietnam Business, Vietnam is considered as one of the countries with dynamic entrepreneurship environment in Asia and ranked 11th out of 62 countries with best startups. In the first quarter of 2016, various startup projects in Vietnam has raised a large capital investment from international funds such as TripMe, Tong, and Momo. There are positive signs indicating the development of Vietnam startup. In recent years, the number of Vietnamese startups has been increasing, with an increase of 1,000 on average. Apart from the familiar models relating to information and technology, the others, including graphic designs, education, and online services, have been paid much attention from young entrepreneurs.
We can see that every year we have more and more startups joining, both for the exhibition and both for the competition. And the quality of the startups, year by year, we can see that it's getting better prepared, more reasonable, both in terms of quality and quantity. So we can see a lot of positive impact.
Let's find out more about the development of startup companies in recent years and evaluation on the potential of Vietnam startups in 2016 through the conversation with Sharing Vietnam's guests today.
Hello and welcome to Sharing Vietnam on VTC10 NETVIET. Startup is no longer a strange term to Vietnamese people, especially the youngsters. Many people want to develop their own ideas and start up it to become a good and potential business model. And that also makes Vietnam become one of the potential markets in the region for startup companies. And in our program today, we have a talk with Mr. Jason KASSEL, a startup consultant from US, and he will share more about the topic of startup in Vietnam, opportunities and challenges. Thank you, Mr. Jason, for joining our program today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Since 2013, the number of the startups companies in Vietnam has dramatically increased, and it has become one of the more potential markets in the region. So what do you think about this?
Well, Vietnam is a really exciting place for the startup community. The whole world right now is watching Vietnam. Google CEO was just in Vietnam last December at the end of 2015, and he was speaking about how it's the future, that it's really the place to be, that if you want to see the potential of the internet, this is where you should go. It's a very young population. So many people are on mobile phones. Everybody has the intelligent phone. So there's really a lot of opportunities here. All of the basics are here right now for Vietnam to really take off and explode in the internet scene and the startup community. Right now, there are four primary fields that startups could take over. One is fintech, which is financial technology. And this relates to really anything that's going to connect the banking system, electronic money, some sort of way in which people can transfer currency electronically. For right now, when you order things online, most of the time you pay COD, cash on delivery. And so even if you're buying an app, sometimes people selling apps have to wait and have somebody go to a home and they give a password. And so that really slows down commerce. Something else that is really needed is what's called logistics support. And this would be helping companies move things from point A to point B and making sure that they arrive safely, on time, and that there's very good tracking. So that tracking is really a way in which startups could have a lot of potential. And the final one that people talk about a lot for Vietnam is agricultural technology, or agri-tech. So to the extent that people are able to help with that and help to find solutions so that farmers can take more advantage of limited water supply, people can do more to measure soil, all of these things are really lucrative opportunities for people to exploit.
Okay, so what do you think about the differences of Vietnamese startup environment as compared to other countries?
Here in Vietnam, we have all of the different components. Everything really exists. When it comes to capital, you have things like FPT Ventures, you have IDG, you have international finance coming in, like something like Unitas Impact, Lotus Impact, 500 Startups, 1337 Ventures. So all of the international money that is coming here, capital has arrived now in Vietnam. You have an educational component. Dragon Capital and FPT recently signed a memorandum of understanding, and FPT University is now going to become more heavily involved in the startup scene. So you now have that component which is operating there. You have co-working spaces like Tong, Up Co-working. You have Dreamplex down in Ho Chi Minh. So you really have the different components are here today in Vietnam. And the government, with the Ministry of Science and Technology, the government is getting involved in the right way. So all of the pieces are starting to come together for the country really to take off. It's a very, very exciting time.
Thank you so much for sharing. And now we're taking a look at the clip introducing to all of you the development of the Vietnamese startups environment in recent years.
Vietnam is the third country with the largest number of startups in Southeast Asia, led by Indonesia and Singapore. In the first 4 months of 2016, Vietnam had nearly 35,000 new registered companies with a total capital of over 248 trillion Vietnam dongs, a year-on-year increase of 22.9%. Vietnam's startup community is growing fast and becomes as strong as those of other countries. However, the majority of startups in Vietnam still face problems relating to capital and fundraising. Additionally, in developing markets like Vietnam, the fast-changing need of the customers has caused risk for inexperienced founders in developing business plans.
3 years ago, not many people understanding about like having a new businesses, or even we do not have enough vocabulary like startup ecosystem, entrepreneurship, or some other things. And even the new concept of Khách, like a startup incubator, is very new. So we have to like cope with those kind of difficulties. And when we pitch our business, like startup pitch their products right now, not many people like can think that model will work here in Vietnam. And you see right now, the government, the media, and other kind of private and public associations and organizations are hand in hand supporting the entrepreneurs and the ecosystem.
Actively presenting ideas and seeking funds from local and foreign funds is one of the feasible solutions. Recently, a venture from the US, 500 Startups, has established a small fund of $10 million to invest in more than 100 startups in Vietnam, attracting the attention of the concerns. Most recently, Tong, a co-working space in Vietnam, officially received $1 million investment. This is a positive signal expressing beliefs and expectations of large investors for Vietnamese startups. Besides, the Vietnamese startup also needs to change the vision and competitive mindset. While competing locally, they should look for bigger innovative ideas to compete with international companies.
If you set up a startup, you want to be an entrepreneur, you need a competitive advantage, a sustainable competitive advantage. It can be many different things. You can be faster, cheaper, more efficient, or even more creative than your competitors. You have to be able to identify this competitive advantage and articulate it. If it's creativity, it's good. If it's speed, if it's a cheaper solution, it's also good.
2016 is a promising year with a booming number of startup projects in Vietnam. The opportunity comes from the strong impact of the new investment in Vietnam, with the support from the Governmental Cooperation Agreement to take effect. Notably, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement (TPP), the ASEAN Economic Community (AEC), and some bilateral and multilateral agreements. This will become the favorable condition for Vietnam startups to seek innovative ideas and integrate into the global startup community.
Coming back to our talk today, so what do you think about the difficulties and the challenges for the Vietnamese startup in the next year?
Startups in Vietnam face some difficulties that every startup's going to face, right? Lack of money. Yeah. And so one way of solving that is to take advantage of the co-working spaces that are here in Vietnam, both in Ho Chi Minh and also up here in Hanoi. I think one of the real main problems or the main difficulties that startups have here in Vietnam is an absence of what we would call soft skills. So whether it's marketing and sales or leadership or teamwork. And so what people really need, I think, is a good mentorship programs. Those would really help a lot. And some way in which, and there's organizations like Tigers at Mekong and Seiko EP that are really doing quite a lot to help bring mentorship into Vietnam.
Right. So can you give some of the recommendations for the Vietnamese government in supporting the local and foreign startups companies?
So as far as for recommending with the government right now is doing something with the Ministry of Planning and Investment, which is a circular to help create more opportunities for venture capitalists and to create more favorable tax situations for angel investors. Yeah. So that's the capital end, and that will really do a lot. The government has also done a lot in terms of the educational component. They're bringing the university into it more. And I think the final thing, though, that really is missing is this soft skills development. So at some point, whether it's going to take place at the high school level or even younger, but Vietnamese students are going to need to learn more of the soft skills that are involved in business. The final recommendation is that the Vietnamese government should focus on educating youngsters in soft skills. Yes. And so these soft skills are really missing from the Vietnamese community. And it's not just in the startup ecosystem, but it's really when international companies come here in general. This is the one complaint that they have about the Vietnamese workers, is that they need to retrain them in the soft skills.
Okay, so as an experienced startup consultant, can you give some of the experiences for the startup founders in developing their own ideas and initiatives?
The solution would be, I think, more mentors. Yeah. So to the extent that we can bring more business people into contact with the young startups and help them share their knowledge, to the extent that we can have experienced Vietnamese business people help the startup ecosystem, that's really the solution. So it's education, but at a professional level. We need people who have already made it in Vietnam to help the younger people.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that is also the end of our program Sharing Vietnam for today. We talk about the general overview of Vietnamese startups in the recent years, and we do hope that with the support from the Vietnamese government, local and international organizations, the Vietnamese startup environment will thrive and become more potential for the development of the whole country. For comments and feedback, please send it to sharingvietnam@netviet.net. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.